It is week 7, and welcome to the Gadsden Times Kickoff Show. I'm Teddy Couch, and this is Michael Rogers subbing in for Kevin Taylor. And we're going to do things a little differently this week. Usually, we'll post it on YouTube after we record it, but we're going to join you live, and we hope you join us and bring us some comments and talk about some high school football this week.
I'm ready. Going to go ahead and start us off with a rundown of this week's games, of our local teams, and also some of our area teams. Coosa Christian is playing Galesville. West End is playing Ranburne. We've got Westbrook and Gadsden. Southside versus Alexandria. Sardis versus Boaz. Hoax Bluff versus Cleburne County. Glencoe and Piedmont. Gadsden City versus Florence. Etowah versus Douglas. Albertville is at Lee Huntsville. Cedar Bluff is at Fife. Cherokee County is at Asheville. Collinsville is at Asbury. Fort Payne is playing Buckhorn. Plainview is playing Brindley Mountain, and Sand Rock is traveling to Section. So that's sort of a rundown of local teams and some of our area teams. And so now I guess we'll just take a closer look at some of them.
Right. Jeremy, thank you for joining. He said go Southside Panthers. They have a big matchup with Alexandria this week. It's going to be big for them playoff-wise, and we'll get to that here in a little bit. As we're, kind of wanting more people to join, are there any games that's really catching your eye this week? We won't go into detail too much yet, but which one's catching your eyes the most?
Looking at it, the Southside Alexandria and the Sardis Boaz, those are interesting, the way those are going to play off of each other. As far as big games, I think, the Gadsden City Florence game is also a really big one. We'll get a little more in-depth with that later, but that's, as far as what's on the line, that may be our biggest game of the week.
And then also, you got Westbrook and Gadsden playing two county teams. It's always fun when you have two county teams playing. It even means more when it's a region game. So it's going to be a lot of fun.
Right.
Start out with Coosa Christian hosting Galesville. Coosa's 3-3 overall, 1-2 in Region 7, and Galesville's 2-4 and 1-2 in the region. Coosa's coming off a 70-27 loss to Falkville. What have you kind of see come out of that one?
Coosa is tied for fourth in a three-way tie for fourth in the region. So obviously at this point they need to win. I honestly don't know a whole lot about Galesville, but I do know that Coosa's offense is probably the pride and joy of their team, and they set a state record last week, I believe. Versus Falkville. I think, if I remember correctly, that's the first time there have been two teams pass for more than 400 yards in a game. Right. So I don't think offense is going to be a problem for them. Galesville is actually one of the teams that they're tied with.
Right.
So, I think Coosa's probably gonna pull this one out. But what do you think?
You're talking about last week, Hayden Lipscomb was 27-50, 429 yards, 3 touchdowns. And then Evan Delp, receiver, he's on the receiving end at 230 yards but on 8 receptions, 2 touchdowns. Like you said, there's no doubt Coosa can get it done offensively. And I got Coosa winning this one big. This will be a big win for them. Both of their region losses are likely to the top 2 teams in that region. I think Coosa's still in a great position, although they're 1-2 in the region, to make the playoffs. I think they're going to be fine, and I think they get back in the winning way in that region this week. And Jimmy joining us, thank you so much for being with us. And he said, how about the Boaz Pirates this year? 1 loss so far. Sardis better bring their A game. And Jimmy, you're absolutely right. Sardis is coming off some tough losses this year. And, they're going to have to be able to come through and play a good game, and we'll get to that one a little bit later.
I appreciate the confidence, Jimmy. I'm just going to go on the record and say that, I know that's a, I don't know if that's a rivalry game, but given the proximity, it's got to be, huge, because that's just right across the road from each other.
I did a little series time at the Times, usually week to week with players. I did one with one of Sardis quarterback Trent Presley, and I was asking him about this week's game when they played Alexandria last week, and then Boaz, and he was talking about that Boaz game is one I really want. That's our biggest rival, and he knows a lot of the kids over there. It's a fun rivalry. They know each other, and he said I really want to get that win. So. Right. Like he said, though, Jimmy's right. With a running back like Christian Collins, Sardis are going to have to bring their A game for sure.
We've also got West End and Ranburne. That's, I think all of our games this week are region games. So I'm not going to be redundant and call it that again, all these times. But West End is still looking for their first win of the year. How do you think that one's going to go?
It's been a tough season for West End so far. They're giving up 56.2 points on defense. Ranburn's come in averaging 34.3 points per game. West End, like you said, 0-6 on the year, 0-3 in the region. They're actually on a 7-game losing streak dating back to last year. West End's coming off a 70-22 loss to Ohatchee, but Ohatchee's kind of the top dog in that region. Just defense has been a problem. And, you know, Ranburn's coming off a 41-14 win against Westbrook. Westbrook's been pretty solid so far this year. I got to give it to Ranburn in this one. I'm going to have to say Ranburn probably runs away with this one.
I was a little surprised that Ranburn handled Westbrook last week like they did.
I agree.
So yeah, I've got to come down on the Ranburn side of that one too, because West End has struggled, and I don't know that this is the week that they break that.
Right, so. For sure. And number 2, Hokes Bluff. They're going to be hosting 1-6 Cleveland County. So that, you know, make sure early. I do want to mention before I forget, this Friday night, Coach Rob, they're going to be naming the stadium after him. Much deserved honor for Coach Rob. This is his 23rd football season. He's also coached 23 seasons of girls basketball in the past. He'll be entering his 11th season as baseball coach. Just won numerous games, 2001 state champs. So around 6:40, I believe, is when they're going to be holding a little ceremony. You know, people are talking about Coach Rob, and I'm not sure if he's going to be speaking or not. But you know, if you want to come out and see that, make sure you come out and see the stadium. It'll be now Mike Robertson Stadium over at Hokes Bluff. So make sure you come out and see that. But Hokes Bluff going to be hosting a 1-6 Cleveland County team, as we said. And what do you see come out of that one?
Hokes Bluff, they kind of surprised me last week, had a little bit of a slow start, I think. That was closer than I thought it would be for longer than I thought it was going to be. And I know, you don't really get that by looking at the final score. But I don't see that changing either. I think, they're going to come out and hit their stride and try to not get hurt in the second half, because that's sort of for all of these teams who are solidly at the top of their region playing a lower region opponent. That's always a priority this time of year, is to not get hurt, because you're fighting for home field, but you've all but got a playoff spot locked up. So I think that they'll get a half, and probably in the third quarter they'll get some more experience for some of their other players, and just kind of like they've been doing in every game so far this year.
Hokes Bluff, I think the big thing is, I know you mentioned the slow start against Asheville. I think they had -5 yards after the first quarter against Asheville. So, it's just, but then they ended up racking up 400-something yards over the stretch of the next 2 quarters. So it's just overcoming that slow start. And, I don't know for sure, but it could be, looking ahead. And the next 2 weeks are games that Hokes Bluff should win, and probably should win pretty handily. But that Jacksonville game is looming, and it's starting to get closer, and it's getting closer. Yeah. And let's face it, that's for the region championship unless one of these teams slip up, and neither one should.
Right.
Is it the case of these two just, well, not these two, but Hokes Bluff looking ahead, and it very well could be. So I know Hokes Bluff's Coach Rob's wanting them to come out with that stronger start. Because Cleveland County's a team, yes, they're 1-6, but they're putting up 26.7 points a game. What if Cleveland County comes out and punches them in the mouth real quick? You just can't afford to have that slow start against a team like that. Like I said, record-wise may not show, but they are capable of putting points on the scoreboard. So you just going to have to be a little bit faster start, and I think Hokes Bluff does that. I think they come out, and I think they win handily in this one.
We've also got Piedmont against Glencoe. That one is once another one of these sort of matchups between a top team in the region and a bottom part of the team, because Piedmont is tied for second in the region with Randolph County. They're 4-2 on the season, 3-1 in the region, and Glencoe is still looking for their first win. So, personally, I don't think that they pick it up against Piedmont. Glencoe has struggled, and Piedmont's, even with a 4-2 record, they're consistently one of the top rated teams in the state. They win. They know how to win. I think that's going to be a struggle for Glencoe.
Yeah, Piedmont's coming in, losing our last 2 ball games. I was actually curious as to the last time that happened. They lost 2 weeks ago to Jacksonville, and then last week they lost to Sachs, both 2 great teams in Northeast Alabama, probably 2 of the better teams around here. I was just curious last time they lost 2 games straight. So I looked back, and it was actually 2014. And ironically, that was against Glencoe and then Leeds. So I thought that was interesting, But this week, Glencoe struggled. The first-year head coach. This is probably a game, Piedmont definitely should, win big, and I think Piedmont does that. Glencoe's scoring 3.5 points per game, and they're giving up 41.7 points, and I just got to go with the Bulldogs winning big. They've got the experience. I mean, constant state title contenders, and so I'm going to go Piedmont winning this one pretty big.
We've got a comment from here in the newsroom that the boiled peanuts at Glencoe are good. And I'm not going to take us too far off, but I am originally from South Alabama, and I love boiled peanuts. I have constantly been looking for some good boiled peanuts. So if any of you have any tips about boiled peanuts, if you want to just drop them in the comments, I won't be mad about that. I had some really good ones at Etowah to start the season. I'll have to try Glencoe's just because no offense to any of y'all, but it's been a struggle to find good peanuts in North Alabama. So if that's the case, I may have to get out to Glencoe at some point and give them a shot. But moving on with what you're here for, which is the football and not the peanut talk, is Etowah and Douglas. What do you think about that one?
Well, I mean, I'm just going to I can keep it short and sweet, and I think Etowah honestly can just about name their score. But I will say this about the Blue Devils. They need more of a complete game. They struggled last week offensively, just an 8-6 win against Pell City. And the defense is phenomenal, probably the best around this part of the state. But, offense struggling still as the season goes along. They're just up and down, up and down. You can't always depend on that defense, especially once playoff time rolls around. I think they're going to be fine. They'll get things together. Well, they're definitely going to get things back together this week. I think Etowah wins this one handily.
I was here in the office last week listening to the Southside game because Southside traveled to Douglas, and Southside's kind of been in an offensive slump, maybe sort of like Etowah this year. They've struggled at times, but Southside didn't have any problems. They had scored I think 42 points up to this point in the season and had surpassed that in the first half. So Douglas might be what that offense needs to kind of get going. So yeah, I'm on board with a big Etowah win for that one.
I'm saying it's big too because Etowah they have to travel to Alexandria next week, and then they have to host Boaz. I know that's looking ahead, but that's two of maybe 2 or 3. Southside's in that mix as well, but that's 2 big region games that Etowah's going to have to end the year with. So they need to kind of get rolling heading into that game, and I think this will be the one that gets it going. Hey Jeannie and hey Patty, thank you for joining us. Patty said, "Go Boaz Pirates." We got some Boaz fans joining us tonight.
That's 2 Boaz fans coming at us. I mean, when you got a football team that's that good, I don't blame you for coming out of the woodwork.
Absolutely.
Moving on to Westbrook and Gadsden. That's not only a region matchup. That's a county matchup. I saw Gadsden play earlier this year, and I think that team really depends on Cameron Hawkins. I know he's been banged up a little bit. However he goes, that's kind of how their team goes. They certainly have sort of a big play offense capability with the long pass. I saw them drop a couple of those against Woodland. I did also see Westbrook play earlier this year, and they don't seem like a team that makes a lot of mistakes. I'm concerned for the depth for Gadsden. I feel like Westbrook's probably just going to pound it out, and Gadsden may be able to hang with them for a little bit, but I think that the longer the game goes on, the more they'll kind of wear out. That's sort of where I am with this, and I kind of got to give the edge to Westbrook in this one.
Westbrook's 1-2 in the region. They're coming off 2 losses, but it's the 2 top teams in that region, Ohatchee and Ranburne. I think they get back on the winning side of this one as well. I think they're still in good shape. If they make the playoffs this year, this will be the first time since 2009 and 2010 that Westbrook's made the playoffs 2 consecutive seasons. So this is a big deal for them to get back in the playoffs for sure. And like you said, with Gadsden, the depth concerns you. Josh Campbell, quarterback for them, elbow, he's still going to be out. I talked to Coach Swain Morris a couple of weeks ago. He said he was still a few weeks of being able to come back. And at that time, Cameron Hawkins, he had an ankle sprain, and he was week to week at that point. And I'm going to say last week, the stats that we got, he had 4 carries for 18 yards. So obviously, I don't know for sure. I haven't talked to Coach Morris this week, but 4 carries, you would want Cameron Hawkins to have more than that. Kind of leads me to believe that maybe he's not 100%. Right. And they certainly need him to have some success, especially against a team like Westbrook. But I have the Warriors winning this one as well.
Moving on to one of our bigger games of the week, Gadsden City versus Florence. Let's talk about that one a little bit. What do you think about that?
Gadsden City's 0-6, 0-4 in Region 4, and Florence is 3-4, 2-2 in the same region. You know, usually with an 0-6 team, you wouldn't think playoffs are possible, but believe it or not, playoffs are possible for Gadsden City. Of course, they really need to win out in this region for it to happen, though.
Yeah, we were talking about it earlier this afternoon, and with 3 games left, there's a whole lot of algebra involved with win-loss records, and we can't say for certain that Gadsden City would be eliminated if they lost this game. But let's just say that it wouldn't look good. There would have to be a whole bunch of Team A beats Team B, and then you start getting into tiebreakers and who had the head-to-head wins, and then eventually you'd have to work your way down to which team had the most number of players whose last name starts with A, or whatever the 7th or 8th tiebreaker is. I mean, I don't know. Like, it gets real complicated really quick. And so, yeah, it's pretty much a must-win situation for Gadsden City.
The simple equation for Gadsden City is to win. I mean, they need to win these last 3 games and to make it a little easier on themselves, but that's going to be easier said than done. And Gadsden City's kind of had a lot of problems putting together a complete game. Last week they come out, scoring's been an issue for them all season long. They scored 28 points. Jamontez Woods, 2 one-yard runs, had a 99-yard kickoff return, and I believe Calvin Williams blocked a punt and returned it for a touchdown. But the problem is they gave up a season-high 50 points. So, one week the defense plays pretty well. Sometimes they're on the field a lot, and maybe the final score don't really indicate that, but their defense plays well. Their just offense is not on the field a lot. Last week, the offense was able to move the ball some, but they just weren't able to stop on defense.
And from reading reports of that game, I was kind of impressed because the Gadsden City didn't give up at the end of that game. And I think, it would be real easy for a team that hasn't won a game to, be down as many points as they were last week and then to just mail it in and turn it in. But they didn't, and they kept fighting. And I think that says a lot for for this team and their potential to win out, to keep any playoff hopes alive. Because for all the talk of the complicated playoff scenarios, Teddy's right. The best thing that you can do is win the game. Even having said that, I think they've still it's going to be a close game, but I still kind of got to give the edge to Florence.
Gadsden City's schedule was so top-heavy. I mean, you start out with a team like Etowah, then you have Oxford, and you're not even in region play yet, and that's 2 of the top teams around the state. I mean, really, not even this half of the state, but along the state. And then you get into region play, and it just got tougher and tougher for them. They're now getting to that point, though, in the region to where, it's kind of slacking off a little bit in terms of the quality of opponents. Now, Florence is still going to be a solid opponent for Gadsden City, no doubt about it. I mean, I have to give the edge to the Falcons, but Gadsden City's going to have to come out and take advantage of opportunities that they get. I know last week James Clemens came out, punched them in the mouth there, they got a touchdown. Gadsden City takes it right back to them, drives down, kicks a field goal, and it's a roughing the kicker. So they get 1st and goal inside the 10, and they're not able to score. I think an interception ended up, ending that drive. If Gadsden City can score on that drive, who knows? This team just needs to see they're young. They need to see some positive things happen, and maybe it'll, avalanche and more things will happen positive for them. But I'm going to have to give it to Florence in this one. But there are winnable games coming up for Gadsden City, and, if they're able to get this one, who knows? Football is a crazy sport.
We found that out in the first game, speaking of Gadsden City, that Gadsden City-Etowah game.
Yeah, that was a crazy game for sure.
You never know what's going to happen. But these last ones that we're going to talk about are all in the same region. We've got Southside and Alexandria, and then Sardis and Boaz. And we'll start with Southside and Alexandria. Southside got a big win last week against Douglas. That's something that they needed. And this week they face Alexandria, because even though Alexandria is 4-2 on the season and Southside is 2-4, they're both 2-1 in the region, so they're tied for 3rd. So playoffs are certainly still in the picture for Southside, and I think there's still an outside chance that they could still host a game if I've heard correctly.
Mm-hmm. So that's the crazy thing too. We talk about Gadsden City being 0-6 and have a chance of making the playoffs. Well, Southside's 2-4 and have a chance of hosting the first round of the playoffs, and that's because 3 of those losses became outside of the region. So Southside's 2-1 right now, and they're hosting Alexandria, and so we can go ahead and say, unless Boaz might have something to say about Etowah for sure. So we can't say Etowah is the region champs, but they're definitely the favorite. And then you have to think, if Etowah does finish business like they are, people think they will do, then you have 3 spots left, and you got to think that's between Boaz, Alexandria, Southside, and Sardis. So, Southside still has to play Alexandria, and they still have Boaz left too. So, I mean, Southside controls their own destiny, and it starts this week with Alexandria for sure, and they're coming off a 63 win against Douglas. That's a lot of confidence, like you said. You got to listen to that game, and they were just rolling offensively.
Right. Yeah, that's something that they needed. I don't know that they'll be able to do that again against Alexandria, but it's certainly good for your confidence. And so I, even with that, I think I probably still got to go with Alexandria on this one, because Southside is a good team. They're on the upswing, and anytime you can kind of dangle the carrot of playoffs, that gives you some hope and gives you something to fight for. Not just the pride of getting the win, but I think Alexandria is probably going to come away with the W.
Right, yeah. Southside offense has been a bit of a struggle for them. They are averaging 17.5 points per game, but that kind of gets inflated a little when you come off a 63-0 win. I think they're averaging 8.4 before, and the most they scored before last week was 14 points in the game. Cat Bothwell definitely drives that offense, and they're going to look for to build around him. Alexandria's coming in strong though, 3-0 after a 1-2 start. Last week they were down to Sardis 15-13 at the half, and ended up coming back and scoring 20 unanswered to take it 33-15. So this team's coming in hot, and I'm gonna have to go with the Valley Cubs to edge out Southside. I think Southside will be very competitive. Young kids. I know they haven't had the season that they wanted, but come on, whenever you're 16, 17, you don't worry about what happened 2 weeks ago.
Right.
Last week's fresh on their mind, and they're coming in with a lot of confidence. So I think it's going to be a close one, but I think Alexandria pulls it out in the end.
Well, and we were talking about Cat Bothwell. That kind of leads us into Sardis versus Boaz, because Boaz, as we all know, has the running back. You said his name's Christian Collins.
That's right.
Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He has been having a fantastic season, and so Sardis, in their game against Southside earlier this year, for the most part, they managed to keep Cat Bothwell in check. But they're going to have another tall order, Friday night when they play Boaz.
Sardis is coming in with some just tough losses. They're 2-4, 1-3 in the region. They lost to Southside, like you said, 14-10. I want to say Southside scored in the last minute to take that lead. After Sardis, I think they led most of the game, if I'm not mistaken. But it's a game that I know Sardis feels like they should have gotten and they didn't. And then they turn around and lose to Etowah 36-0, held to 19 yards. That's a tough pill to swallow for sure. And then they lose to a non-region opponent in Sylvania, go down 20-0. Come back, make it 19, and they just fell just short of making that comeback complete. And then, like I said, against Alexandria last week, they're leading at the half and ended up losing it. That's tough losses, and then especially with 3 of them being in the region and 3 of those teams being more than likely playoff teams out of that region. This is a must-win scenario, in my opinion, for the Lions.
Yeah, it definitely would make things more difficult, because they, unlike a lot of the other teams, they only have 2 region games left. Right. There's this one against Boaz, and then they have the game against Crossville. And so they don't have, if they lose this one, they don't have nearly as much time to gain ground as some of the other teams might, because a lot of the other teams in the region have 3 games left. And I guess that's a benefit of, unless I'm miscounting, not a benefit, but a problem with having a 7-team region, is some people are going to be missing a few games toward the end of the season. So I think Sardis probably comes away with the loss here. It's big rivalry game. I've been told. So Boaz is looking good this year, and I think they keep rolling.
Sardis like I said, it's a 5-team race for these 4 spots. They've already lost to Etowah. They've already lost to Southside, and they got Boaz. They still have Boaz left. I don't know if I misspoke and said they've already lost to Boaz. I might have had that wrong, but they play Boaz next week. They need to really get both of these to really help their playoff standings, but you don't want to worry about, they got Boaz this week. I don't know what I'm thinking. I guess I got Southside and Alexandria mixed up, but you got to win this one after you've already lost to those 3 teams that are ahead of you. Right. You got to pull that out, and this is a big win. They really needed that win last week, and they weren't able to get it, but maybe they're able to come out and get them this week.
Looking at the slate of other games, I think the Cedar Bluff and Fife game ought to be pretty good. Those are two teams at the top of that region. You know, Cedar Bluff's been looking good, and 5 is 5. You know, otherwise, you know, out of county, you know, we've hit all the high points. So, you know, we thank everybody for joining us tonight. We're probably going to start wrapping this up. You know, if you missed I know we've been live for a little while, so if you missed the beginning of this show, you know, you can always rewind it on the Facebook Live, you know, after we finish this broadcast, or we're going to upload this to YouTube. So you're going to be able to go to youtube.com/Gadsden Times. We make it easy for you. You can subscribe to our channel. You can get notifications whenever we drop a new video. This show is going to be put there. Also, we're going to be live on Facebook Friday night. We try to get it live as early as we can. You know, we do still have to put a paper out. So, you know, anytime between 11 and 11:30, keep an eye on your Facebook page, and we'll be doing the sort of same thing, except instead of talking about what's going to happen and what we think is going to happen, we'll talk about what did happen. So keep an eye out on Friday night for the kickoff review show, where we break down what we saw while we were out at the games. So any other comments from the crowd?
Nothing yet. We just got some people joining us, and we appreciate you joining us tonight. And leading up to the games Friday, just be looking out for our previews. We'll have those, and like you said, Friday night we'll be coming live, and we hope you join us and bring us some comments, questions, and we'll do our best to answer them. And thank you so much for joining us tonight.
We'll see you Friday.